In the catalog, there is a lot of gear. Now, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Gear is pointless. Okay, I mean, can you think of a single game that does not use base Roblox gear? I can't either. Every game nowadays uses custom-made gear specifically tailored to that particular game. Besides, who would want to use base gear? They're all broken anyway. Half the time, the gear in question just doesn't work. The scripts are so old to where the current state the Roblox game engine is in, none of them work properly. However, that is not the case at all for this series of gear. In fact, this series has been updated to where they work specifically for R15. I, for one, have never seen a working piece of gear on R15 that was made by Roblox. The scripts just don't work anymore, but these do. Now, I know I just made a twisted history involving swords, but the swords I want to talk about today are special. Swords that I find to be some of the most exciting pieces of gear that one can buy in the Roblox catalog. Space, the final frontier. For generations, humanity has studied the depths of space in an attempt to unlock its many secrets. Many have dreamed of flying amongst the stars, yet only few dare travel the path less taken. To experience space, one must have the proper equipment to make the dangerous voyage. Spacesuits today come with special gear that allows one to survive the impossible coldness of the beyond. In fact, these suits have so much in them they can cost millions of dollars. However, a suit may not be enough. What lies beyond our reach? Terrifying entities that seek galactic domination? Gods that the Greeks worshipped, perhaps? Or something else, even more terrifying? So, of course, the only possible second step is to make a series of weapons that one could use to potentially fight these monsters. They must be well made, sophisticated, something that would effectively take out anyone or anything that gets in its way. I've got it! Bam! Rainbows. Back in the day of gear and brick battling, swords flourished. Roblox was a smaller platform with a smaller audience, which allowed the then new firm to try new things, take risks, and it worked out. Gear was cool back then. Since they were all designed for a much older Roblox, they looked pretty cool. They had that old school retro feel to them, and some of them still do. Last time I made a video talking about Roblox's first big hit, Sword Fights on the Heights 4, still fun, and their swords. While those swords were cool in their own way, they have nothing on these bad boys. This is the PERIASTRON. Google says that a PERIASTRON is the point nearest to a star in the path of a body orbiting that star. However, I like to call them the Roblox lightsaber, considering their space theming and visual motifs. Now, before I talk about the PERIASTRONs themselves, I first have to talk about their biggest change ever. Just wait, this will be short. In 2019, every single PERIASTRON sword was changed. That's right, they were all updated specifically for R15. I have no idea why this happened, but it did, resulting in one of my favorite sleeper updates ever on Roblox. Basically what happened was that each sword was not only fitted for use in the R15 rig, but was also given a unique pose that your character would hold it in. Even though this was a while back, it's so cool to see Roblox really caring about the older players. These swords were so outdated before the update. Half of them didn't even work, and they didn't have the cool powers that they have now. Definitely one of my favorite updates. Now, PERIASTRONs are very old. Not as old as the Swath swords, but old by today's standards. So let's talk about each original one in order from oldest to newest. The Azure PERIASTRON was released on November 8th, 2011, almost a decade ago. It's blue with blue sparkles, and it makes this pose when you hold it. Now, each of these PERIASTRONs had their own special ability. This was added when the swords were updated. The Azure PERIASTRON can parry projectiles. When you pull it from your back, you can press Q and start twirling it around. This can knock away any kind of laser or bullet that would otherwise hit you. Now, this doesn't always work, but when it does, it looks really cool in my opinion. Back in the day, you could get this bad boy for around 2,000 Roblox. Now, very important, These swords are not that expensive for what you're getting. This is one of the more expensive ones today since they are pretty low demand. Since they're pretty low demand, you can probably find some in trade hangouts from people who just want to get rid of them. I swear the only reason these aren't in high demand is because they're gear. If these were like back accessories or even like front accessories, they would be way more popular. The Grimgold PERIASTRON beta was released on March 3rd, 2012 for an original price of 2,000 Robux. Now, I don't know what Grimgold is, but that sword's just straight up orange. You could sugarcoat this all you want, Roblox, but this thing right here? Orange. Anyway, much like the other PERIASTRONs, this too has a Q ability. When you use the Grimgold PERIASTRON's Q ability, it sends out shockwaves for 10 seconds that reveal other players nearby, while also damaging and slowing them. It's a pretty cool ability that can be extremely annoying when used properly. Again, this sword isn't too expensive as it has super low demand, while the Svath swords I talked about in my last Twisted History are maddeningly expensive with a much higher demand. PERIASTRONs today are like the Svath sword's younger cousin. Don't worry, champ, you'll get there someday. The Chartreuse, Green, the green one, was released on May 12th, 2012, only 2 months after the Grimgold. This sword also costs 2,000 Robux. It has another cool ability, the Force Field. When you press Q with this thing equipped, it generates a force field around the player that blocks all projectiles and people from entering it, while also healing the player. I would imagine that this ability is super broken, considering it lasts a long time and heals for a generous amount. Not to mention, when you swing the sword twice, you dash forward while launching a big green laser. That kinda hurts. Now, one thing to note about this PERIASTRON is that a day before its actual release, this sword was made available in the catalog. However, due to an error in the system, there were 0 copies, and it had a timer of 2 hours. Therefore, since no one got it, Roblox renamed the now defunct item to the fake Chartreuse PERIASTRON Gamma, or the first fake item. September 29th, 2012 marked the release of the Amethyst PERIASTRON Kappa. This is the purple version and was also available for 2,000 Robux. Much like the others, this sword has one of the coolest abilities in all the catalog. When you press Q, a massive purple meteor will start falling towards the players while also darkening the skybox. Also, if you press E, smaller meteorites will start seeking out players and doing massive damage to all of them. It also disables all flying gear like jetpacks and wings. This is insanely cool to use, and definitely one of my favorites. The Crimson PERIASTRON Mu was released on November 28th, 2012 for a total of 2,000 Robux. This sword's unique ability is to summon a pentagram, You what? 5 red dots around the player. After a few seconds, these dots become pillars that circle the player, dealing insane damage to anybody they touch, before converging into one pillar. This is one of the more expensive swords, only because it's red. The next sword is the most overpowered thing I have ever seen. The Ivory PERIASTRON was released on February 28th, 2013, finally the new year. This sword's ability is... Now, what's interesting about this particular sword is the fact that it had an old ability before the update. The Ivory PERIASTRON's old ability was to make kinda like an electric blue tornado around the player that just pretty much knocked everybody away. It was pretty underwhelming. The Noir PERIASTRON Sai is the next sword on our list. Now, this sword was released on June 24th, 2013 with a very specific method of obtaining it. All you had to do was to redeem 2 different Roblox gift cards from Walmart between June 24th and July 31st. Despite this, it's still pretty rare and quite expensive despite being the cheapest PERIASTRON available. Now, not as expensive as older gears, but it's still pretty rare. This sword's ability was to make the entire map go dark. Seriously, the only light would be around the player who used the sword. I think that's a pretty cool ability, not to mention that the pose your character holds it in is, well, violent. Finally, we get to the end of the original PERIASTRON series. The Rainbow PERIASTRON Omega. Now, this is probably the one that you have all seen before, considering it is one of the most infamously hard to obtain gears in the entire catalog. Released on May 30th, 2014, almost an entire year after the Noir PERIASTRON. This sword is the end-all to be-all of this series. You cannot call yourself a PERIASTRON collector if you do not have this sword. I swear, this thing has its own fandom separate from Roblox. I mean, it's such an icon of quote-unquote old Roblox, and it means so much to so many people. Now get ready for the ability explanations, because it's going to be long, and there's a lot of them. This sword can use, and I quote, any ability from the other swords in the series, as long as you own them. So, to use the full power of the sword, you need to have all the other ones, which is a lot of money now. Let me explain. The green PERIASTRON has the force field. If you want to use the force field with the rainbow PERIASTRON, you need the chartreuse PERIASTRON in your inventory. Get it? This can be done with any other PERIASTRON, making it the best gear in the game. But October, what about the Q? Hang on, little Jimmy whose heart stuck at 100k value, I'm getting to that. The Rainbow PERIASTRON's Q ability is to launch a massive laser in a target direction, completely obliterating anything in its wake. Truly magnificent. Oh my god. The script is already like 5 pages long, and we're still not done. That was only the original series. There are still a bunch left that we haven't even talked about. The Festive PERIASTRON Chi was released on December 23rd, 2013 for a price of 1,225 Robux. This sword's ability is to turn the player into a massive ornament to play a wholesome but deadly game of Katamari Damacy with the other players. The Joyful PERIASTRON was released on April 3rd, 2015 for a price of 1,000 Robux. This sword's ability is to spawn a bunch of eggs that can either have good stuff or bad stuff in them. It's also one-shots someone if you hit them with it, turning them into an egg. Finally, the Fall PERIASTRON was released on November 9th, 2018 for a price of 2,000 Robux. This sword's ability is to make a leaf tornado, knocking away anyone that's caught in it, similar to the Ivory PERIASTRON's old ability that made a blue electric field. Oh my god. There are so many of these swords, bro. When I first started making this video, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Seriously. Usually when I make these Twisted Histories, I'm talking about a max of like 7 items. Not this many. Now, I could talk about the PERIASTRON crowns, but like, what's the point, bro? They're just hats. They aren't anything special and they don't even look good. I wanted to merely talk about how cool not only update to the models look, but also because the actual swords are dope as hell. Huge shout out to Takeo Honorable for updating all these models for these swords. Without you, they would still be a broken mess. I mean, I had no idea this update had even happened until I started making this video. Trust me when I say that if I don't know an update exists, nobody else knows. Thank you so much for this. It's a super cool Easter egg to me. Anyway, that's about it for this episode of Twisted History. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that sub button. It really helps me out. YouTube made their requirements for partner lower to where I only need 1,000 subs and 4,000 watch hours. So please subscribe. I want to keep doing this because I know you want to keep watching. Speaking of watching, if you made it this far, thanks. Make sure to join my Discord and follow my Twitch. I'm going to be doing a huge Twitch revamp eventually because the current state of my channel over there is not the best. Mostly because it got botted. I don't know how, but somebody like mass botted my stream. So that's weird. But yeah, thanks for sticking around, and I will see you next time.